My name is Walter Harwick. I am 63 years old. 3 nights ago, at 10:30 at night, a loan officer I had met only twice called to tell me someone had attempted to move $160,000 out of my savings account that afternoon, and planned to try again the next morning. I already knew who had my login credentials. My own son-in-law had asked for them 6 weeks earlier. By morning, I had packed a bag in the dark and left my daughter's house for good. Before I tell you what happened next, please hit like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time below. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now let me take you back 3 years, to the spring my wife died, and the daughter I thought I still knew. My wife Judith passed 2 days after our 39th wedding anniversary. Pancreatic cancer, the kind that gives you no time to negotiate. After she died, my daughter moved me from our house in Bend into a guest room at her place in Sacramento, saying it made sense, that I shouldn't be alone. I believed her, because I was grieving and because I had always believed her. Her husband Caspian entered her life 7 years ago. Tall, good-looking, always slightly too comfortable in any room. He sold commercial real estate, drove a car too expensive for his fluctuating income, and had opinions about my finances I never asked for. For months after Judith died, sitting at their kitchen table, he suggested gently that managing everything alone at my age seemed like a burden, that if I ever wanted help, he was happy to keep an eye on things. 2 weeks later, exhausted and lonely, my daughter standing beside him nodding, I gave him the login and PIN to my Crestland account, telling myself it was just for convenience. That was 6 weeks before the phone call that changed everything. Everard Finn, the loan officer, told me plainly that the transfer was heading to an account opened less than 3 weeks earlier, under a name he did not recognize, and the amount was significant. "This doesn't look like someone helping you manage things," he said. "No," I told him. "I don't suppose it does," he asked, carefully, if there was somewhere else I could stay that night. If someone had been altering my medication schedule without my knowledge. I understood exactly what he meant without him saying it directly. My daughter had put me on nightly supplements after I moved in. Vitamins, something for sleep, something for blood pressure. I had taken them every night because she handed them to me, and I trusted her completely. I packed a bag in the dark, took my medications, my laptop, and a folder of financial documents. I had never quite trusted the house enough to leave unguarded, though I had never let myself think about why. A ride-share took me to my old friend Garrison's ranch house outside Roseville. He answered on the second ring, said simply, "I'll put the porch light on," and asked no further questions. By morning, I had an appointment with an attorney named Overton Walsh, who listened carefully and told me the medications concerned him most. If someone has been altering your medication regimen without consent, that's elder abuse under California law, combined with the attempted transfer. We're potentially looking at financial elder abuse as well. A forensic accountant named Bertin uncovered the full picture within hours. 3 accounts I had never opened, utility payments, quietly redirected through a third-party service, a life insurance policy updated with a new beneficiary I never authorized, and a power of attorney document buried in estate planning papers my daughter had asked me to sign the same week she asked for Caspian's account access. I had left that one page unsigned, distracted by something I could no longer remember, and never gone back to it. The lab results on my medications confirmed the worst of it. To matched exactly what my daughter had described. Standard supplements and my blood pressure prescription. The third, the one she called a mild sleep aid, was a compound that in sustained doses produces symptoms mimicking early dementia, memory lapses, confusion, difficulty following complex documents. My own daughter had been medicating me to appear cognitively impaired. I wish this had gone differently. I wish my daughter had simply asked for help managing our finances honestly instead of building a plan to establish false cognitive decline, obtain control through power of attorney, and execute transfers before I could ever contest any of it. But wishes do not undo 6 weeks of medication handed to me nightly by someone I trusted completely. The truth does. Sitting on Garrison's back porch that first week, watching a small brown bird work at his feeder, he said quietly, "You told me a year after Judith died that something felt off. You didn't know what it was." I thought I was just grieving. I told him, "You were grieving too." He said, both things were true. I had named the feeling grief because grief was legitimate. Made sense given everything I had lost. But underneath it, there had been something else entirely. A persistent wrongness I had never let myself look at directly. I called Everard Finn that same week from Overtone's office to tell him the things he had warned me about were real. "You called me at 10:30 at night." I said, "You didn't have to do that. My grandfather went through something similar a few years ago." He told me quietly, "Nobody caught it in time. I just didn't want that to happen to someone else." That evening, alone at Garrison's kitchen table, I reviewed every document Burdane had gathered. One final time, the redirected payments, the unsigned power of attorney, the lab results confirming exactly what had been happening to my own mind for months. 12:03 in the morning. I am 63 years old. I am, for the first time in 3 years, no longer the confused, grieving man my daughter and her husband had been quietly building a legal case around, across the city. My daughter and Caspian were almost certainly still confident their timing window would hold. With no idea, a single unsigned page and one honest phone call had already unraveled everything they had spent months constructing. The Sacramento DA's office opened a formal investigation within 48 hours. My daughter was arrested on a Tuesday morning. Caspian roughly 40 minutes later at his office. I did not watch the news that day. I sat on Garrison's porch and watched that same small bird at the feeder, and thought about nothing in particular. Her attorney is arguing diminished judgment, that Caspian architected the entire plan and my daughter was influenced beyond her own reasoning. I have thought about that at 3 in the morning more times than I can count, and I still do not have a verdict on it. What I know plainly is that she knew what that medication was doing to me, even if she told herself it was temporary. Even if 100 mitigating things happened to be true. She looked at me across a courtroom hallway the way she always had, expecting the confused, grateful father who trusted every explanation without question. I was not that man anymore, and I had not been since the moment Everard Finn called at 10:30 at night. Judith used to say you can tell everything about a person by how they treat someone who cannot do anything for them. I understand that lesson differently now. Everard Finn had no obligation to me whatsoever. Only a grandfather whose story hadn't ended well, and a choice to make a phone call instead of simply going home. Everard was promoted into a senior fraud prevention position at Crestland 2 months into all of this. Unrelated to my case, though I am glad it happened anyway. I moved back to Bend in the spring, his smaller house this time. No guest room. No space for anyone to stay long term. Just the mountains Judith always loved and her ceramic bowl catching the morning light on my windowsill. I think of her every morning I drink my coffee without medication now. Real sleep finding me on its own. And I think the people who should have taken care of me didn't. And the person who did was someone with no obligation to me at all. If you have ever discovered that the people closest to you were capable of something this calculated, I want to hear your story. Tell me in the comments. And if this one moved you, subscribe to Dad's Revenge Tales. There is more where this came from.